So we've come up to Hays, Kansas, which is where our next stop is. But we're just looking out of the window to the right, and there's just a huge junkyard of oil drilling materials off to the side of the road here. So Hays, Kansas has a population of about 21,000 people. And so our next actually scheduled stop is here. And what's funny is Mike has no idea where we're stopping at these places. He's just showing up. And so, so I'll do another video clip when we come up to where our stop is up here. All right, so here is our scheduled stop, and this is the Fort Hays State Historic Site. And so it's a, Fort Hays out in the middle of Kansas, where the U.S. Army had a fort post. And so we're gonna go learn about that. So just a little video clip of the sign out in front of the little welcome center here. Just talking about what this fort was. Okay, so we've come out of the welcome center and we're into where the fort area is, and we'll talk about the different buildings as we come up to them. But they just have different buildings in this little area. I have to say that little welcome center did a pretty good job of reflecting kind of both sides of the story. So it was really informative. So this little area here is called Officers Row. There's these neat old houses. There's only 2 left, but I bet there was more than that in the day. Let's go take a look. So we're able to come inside these officer homes and look in. And here's just a room set up like it would have been maybe back then. I have to say that the house smells like old wood. Here's just another room with a little piano there and a stove in front of the fireplace. A little sitting area in the front of the house here. So we're gonna head up these stairs and see what's upstairs, but boy, look at the rails on this thing. So here's, we're upstairs now, and here's the bedroom. So this was a duplex. So it appears that they shared the downstairs common areas. And then there were 2 bedrooms upstairs, so here's one of them. And here is the other bedroom. Gosh, just look at this furniture. I love the hat. And so we're back downstairs now, walking into the back of the house, and it looks like this is the dining area. A pantry over there with the butter churn. And then if we keep going back, actually let's go look in the pantry here. Got some cans of things. And then if we keep going back, we get to the kitchen. That stove. Look, there's an ironing board. And look, Mom, there is old iron just like what you have from your grandmother. Pretty interesting. So we're in a different house now, and this appears to be maybe the more senior officer housing. It's a little bigger and the stuff looks a little nicer, but just a few things I saw that looked neat was, first of all, this high chair. They did have families that lived at the fort. And then walking back towards the front of the house, I wanted to go to the little sitting room, and look at that walker. I've never seen anything like that. That's pretty cool. And a little cradle. So upstairs in one of the bedrooms, and I don't know why these toys are so interesting to me, but they just are. Love the little toy stove on the floor there. The carriage over there. A little bitty rocking chair and chair. And both of the rooms have these huge ovens. They're not ovens, they're stoves. keep it warm here. I'm sure it got really cold here in the wintertime. We've walked around to the back of the officer row houses, and we have gardens, and it talks about how the rations were really bad out here in the West, and so they all had their little garden to plant things. And then next to that are actually reproductions of the outhouses, and the sign said that they were really fancy for outhouses back then. This building here is called the guardhouse, and we did get to go in there, but there are other people in there, so I didn't want to make a video and talk while they were in there too. It was a really neat display. So the guardhouse was basically the prison when the soldiers would, get drunk and start fights and stuff like that. They had 3 cells in there for them to hang out in. And so that was kind of cool to see that. And then there's a lot of good displays. They had these motion sensor things, so that when you walked up to something, over the speaker, you would hear kind of the life of the soldier stories that they said were being read from letters from the soldiers that were actually here. So this guardhouse, like I said, had 3 cells in it. It also had room for the for the soldiers that were keeping an eye on them, and it was kind of like an office building and a little prison in there too. So that was a really good example of what it must have been like here at the fort. So this is the blockhouse, which was originally enlisted quarters, but then eventually became the commanding officer's office. Once again, all limestone. So walking into the blockhouse, and this huge room. Look at that ceiling. And actually there was a catwalk up on the 2nd floor at one point. And then if you look at the walls, in a lot of places you can see rifle slots, like right there, both down here and also up where the catwalk would have been. We're finished with our visit to the Fort Hays State Historical Site, and it was a nice little visit. Looking at the pictures, this thing was huge, and like all over the area there were foundations. You could see where buildings were, and they did a good job of putting signs all over the property that told you where the hospital was and told you where the barracks were and all the things that are not still here, and just good information about life at the fort, which I always think is really interesting to hear that kind of thing. So anyway, this was a good little stop to get out and walk around and stretch our legs and learn a little something about our history here. So we are just across the street from the national that Fort Hays site. And right across the street is just this little park, and they randomly have buffalo here. And so what we can see right there is they talk about that they have white buffalo here, and that is definitely not a dark buffalo. So maybe that's the white buffalo, I don't know. But anyway, here's some buffalo, and you see that little shed to the right. There's a bunch of buffalo in there but that we can't see from here. But we're going to kind of go up to the road and maybe look and see if we can see a little better from the road. Well, there's a little shed where the buffalo are hanging out. There's another, I guess, white one over on the left-hand side grazing, but it looks like the entire herd. I must count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 buffalo inside that little shed over there. So that's pretty cool that they have those over here where we can see them. Well, we are heading out of Hays, Kansas. It is currently 2:40 in the afternoon, and we both decided we weren't quite ready for our meal of the day, so we just jumped into Walmart and got a veggie tray and some hummus just to tide us over. We got about an hour and a half to our next scheduled stop, and our weather guide for this trip, and he's telling us that there are some thunderstorms up ahead. So we're really hoping we get to see some thunderstorms, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, we got about an hour and a half trip to our next stop, and we'll see what we can see along the way.